We haven't done a Chronicles of Parker in a while. In service is this week. 2-a-days is this week. She's been, because she's starting pre-K, so she can't go to the daycare anymore. She's been going with to the cheer room where some of the cheerleaders are babysitting teachers' kids during in-service. She comes back after her first day there. She walks into the house, like I had just gotten home. It was 8:30 or something at night. And she walks into the kitchen and she like shoots her hip out to the side and puts her hand on her hip. And she starts walking back and forth across the kitchen, like rocking her hips. And I looked at her and I go, Parker, what are you doing? She goes, I'm working my hips, Daddy.
I just was playing because I love the game. And it's scary to me.
It's really easy for the game to become a job.
Low six in his hands, whistle in his mouth.
Man, kids out there playing the game, staying out of trouble, competing. I love it.
But on that note, like I said, in service, 2-a-days. It's all 1 week now. It used to be 2.5. Whatever. We get a week before school starts. We get a week of work in. UIL changed the acclimation schedule. Schools are starting school year so much earlier. Life is different than it was when I started doing this, what seems like 5 days ago, and it was really 10 years.
Yeah, so y'all did practice this week?
Yeah, we practiced, but you can only practice once a day the first week. Well, the first week is the only week. So it's like, all right, cool. But, everybody's dealing with the same rules. So you deal with it. I know there were some schools that they didn't even get a real 2-a-days because the first day you could practice is the first Monday of August, which was August 4th. And they started school on August 4th or August 5th. So it's like,
That's disgusting.
Yeah, right. But
Who starts in?
I know Minerwell started on August 4th. I'm sure there's a couple others that I don't know of, but they do it so they can get out earlier or because they have 4-day school weeks, which we do. So, but we don't get out quite as early. We'll go a little bit longer in May.
Got it. Was it good? Was it a good week?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's a lot different than when that first year at Salina or even the training camps that I was a part of as a player or GAing at Tarleton. You got in-service stuff going on and, you're at a new school and you're getting to know the routines and the expectations. And so we're practicing at 4:30 in the afternoon, the first 3 days. And, we got lucky. Kind of a storm cell rolled in the weekend before. So the temperature was a little bit lower. We didn't get shut down by the wet bulb or anything like that, but, a little bit different. And then we got to, once we threw the pads on later in the week, we got to go a little bit earlier in the morning. And then we had our inter squad on Saturday, open to the community. Had a few people come out, check us out. And the biggest thing that I'll say is that, the numbers are pretty good for a school our size and the effort, like our varsity guys, our senior guys they're leading with effort. And, you can fix a lot of things. Effort's probably the hardest thing to fix. So when you already have it this early, it's a good place to be for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Really good. And so y'all then, from the scheduling, do y'all scrimmage next week?
Yeah, so we'll scrimmage the next 2 weeks. First 2 weeks of school, we'll scrimmage and then roll into our week 1. I know Tennessee and a lot of other states, they've been practicing football for like 3 months now, but, we don't get that luxury. We make do with the best one that we have. So
I know the school I was just at, they now have had 2 scrimmages so far.
Were they jamborees?
No.
Shout out to the jamborees. Those are still the craziest things I've ever heard of.
I know. Was that the one that told you about that?
Yeah, it blew my mind. I did not understand. Because it's really just a 3-way scrimmage, but it's in the middle of July.
Right.
And I almost had to participate in a 3-way scrimmage while I was at Rivercrest, and thank the Lord I didn't have to, because I don't know how beneficial those can really be, especially when it's that hot outside. But I will say, and I talked about this before, I think that scrimmages are a lot of things that we've like a lot of things that we've talked about. They're as valuable as you make them, right? And I think that I've had some conversations with some coaches that are talking themselves out of the value of 2 scrimmages. You know, that's their thought is that's an old school mentality. That was back when you could hardly do anything. Like you couldn't coach your kids in the summer. You didn't see them until August. Now we can do skills drills, yada, yada, yada. Do we really need 2 scrimmages, or are we just taking a chance getting somebody hurt? And my thought is like that those scrimmages are as valuable as you want them to be, right? Like you're going to have tweeners. So just use it like the preseason, right? That's that 4th preseason game, the starting quarterbacks, the starting whatever, they're in street clothes. But you got 15 guys that are still on the fringe of potentially making the roster, and you're trying to get a look at them. You know, we got a handful of guys that we're trying to figure out, are they Thursday night or Friday night guys? So we got 2 scrimmages to figure it out. And you really hammer home the idea and the expectation that, like, this isn't about, yes, the scoreboard's going to be on, but this isn't about the scoreboard. This is about the process of getting better, getting evaluated, and, you know, fulfilling your potential within this 2-week-long audition, 3-week-long audition. And so that's kind of where we are. We got a long way to go. Not whole staff, but majority staff turnover. But we have a pretty good idea of who we are. We've just got to clean up a few things and really figure out who those last few spots of that varsity roster are going to be before we roll into that week 1 game.
I think at the high school level, like you have to have a scrimmage, at least one, in my opinion. Like reps are gold. That's what the place I'm at right now, that's like a big emphasis, is like reps are gold. And when you're not at the high school level in your college or NFL, there is an understanding intrinsically for most of those players, because they're high level players, on how to flip that switch on in practice. Most high school kids don't have that. Even if they think they do, they don't. And so you don't really get to see their true juice, potential, whatever you want to call it, until, in my opinion, you force their adrenaline to pump a little bit, and you're only going to get that with a scrimmage. And so, whereas again, like in college and NFL, it's like, yeah, they're still going to have more adrenaline when it comes to games, but they know how to truly practice. Most high school kids do not. And so those scrimmages are so valuable to me.
Yeah. And it's like it's crazy to me, the difference in a high school kid the second they put pants on.
Correct.
Like
yeah.
half pads, you know, helmet, shoulder pads, maybe your girdle under a pair of shorts, like the confidence level that a lot of kids will have. And then you slide those pants on with those knee pads in them, and it's like, whoa, it's a different ball game. And it's like, it's really not. For whatever reason, you think you're going to get hit harder now. And you learn a lot those first couple of days of full pads when you're still staying off the ground. It's still thudding to contact. Like you're not playing it like a live game. You are wearing pants, and there's this drastic difference in this, you know, a lot of kids. And it's always been something that's perplexed me since I got into coaching. And I don't think I'll ever understand it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, 100%. Scrimmages are a must.
Yeah. And like, that's the thing is there's a ton of people that everybody does one, right? But now there's this growing number of people who are like opting out of the second one, you know? And it's just, hey, what works for you doesn't necessarily work for me. I'm just still in a situation where I see a lot of value in those because of the second half of your roster. But I also, you know, to me, I look at it as like a transition into like that first scrimmage. We always try and set it up to where we play at least a live quarter in that first scrimmage. Mm-hmm. And then that second scrimmage, we try and set it up to where we play at least a live half. Right. So if we're doing those things, that's just increasing the trajectory of our conditioning to where by the time we do get into week 1, 4 quarters isn't going to blow your mind. Right. Mm-hmm. Your practice tempo and all of those things matter, and those are valuable, but there's just a little bit something different when you can spend some more time with a play clock and refs and spotting the ball and 1st and 10 and those type of situations. Because you can teach guys situational football all the time, right? But teaching it and them executing it are two. There's a big gap in between there, and you got to make sure that they can confidently make that jump.
Yeah, the head coach that with the place I'm at right now, he went to a few different NFL places to just learn, and one of the things that he picked up was how to teach various tempos, meaning not necessarily like pace, but like put it this way: we have like shadow tempo, pro tempo. I mean, it's actually quite a bit, but it's like shadow, pro, speed, obviously live, and I think maybe two more. And so he had to go over the whole thing as far as like, okay, here's what pro tempo means. It's going to be um, the same as shadow tempo, except now we can contest for a ball in the secondary. If we're shadow tempo, we can shadow, and the core is going to be all the way up to the first five steps, never shedding tackling or never shedding a block. Secondary, you can go find the ball, but you can't go contest the ball. So that would be like a 2 minute situation. And then maybe say, okay, hey, now we're going to go to pro tempo, same as shadow, but now we can't contest the ball. Okay, now we're live tempo. And it's interesting because like it is a lot, but I think it also does raise a level of awareness to the kids and learning how to practice. And so they're knowing like thud tempo, pro tempo, shadow tempo, why you do those different tempos throughout a practice. Because I think if you have, which I've done my whole life, but if you have kind of the same tempo in every single drill you do, it doesn't really make much sense. Like, a 2 minute, you want to be able to practice the mechanics of 2 minute. Okay, well, if you're going live during that time, truly live, you're not getting to truly go through the where the sticks are at. Okay, this guy's got to find the ref, and so if you can do it to where it is maybe shadow tempo to where they're not contesting a ball, so maybe they are allowing a catch, you can now actually work the mechanics of finding the middle ref if you can. Obviously, don't throw the ball, get it to him. If I am on the ground and I have the ball, I'm a receiver near the area. Go grab the ball from him and then take it to the ref. Like I think if you go live, you don't really get those mechanics, and I think as a coach, it makes you better too, because now you're actually as a head coach. Because I just heard him talk about this. Like those situations are obviously for you as coaches, but they're also more for me too. The players just execute and they have their certain parameters, but it's also for me as the head coach and knowing how to handle these situations. And if we're not able to march on the field and practice as if it's a real game, that I can't actually utilize those mental gymnastics in my brain, which I was like, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I think that like what I've gathered over the last 2.5 years is that you want to work situational football. You want to work situational football, but saying you want to work situational football and being prepared to work situational football are two completely different things. And understanding the amount of detail that goes into a good execution of situational football is something I think that just comes with time and experience, right? Like I'll never forget in 21, we would do, 1 minute drill, 2 minute drill, and not being aware of how they're setting the scout team or if we're doing good on good, and we call a deep shot and we score on the first play, and it's like, that's great, but nobody else got any work out of this except for the quarterback and the receiver, because we had good on good in the box, but we had a scout team, we had a sub-varsity secondary, right? And those guys can't run with our guys that year. So it's butt naked. We score. Everybody's happy, but I'm looking at like these bullet points and I'm like, well, I didn't get to work that. I didn't get to work this. And you don't want to kill the momentum that you've built through the offense feeling good about their execution. So you got to go back to the drawing board and figure out ways to get those specifics worked in a different team aspect throughout the rest of the week. So the more you can prepare from that aspect, because I do feel like, well, I don't want to change the play call. Like I want if we're going good on good and it's the first play of a 1 minute drill and we're down by 4 and, they're thinking, or we're down by 2 and they're thinking, well, they're probably just playing for a field goal and we can go take the lead on this thing, then let's do it. But I also want my quarterback to know that if it doesn't look absolutely perfect, that he's got to be under control enough to reset, take check down, scramble the concept, all those things, slide, get down, get the ball to the ref. He needs to be able to work those things too. And that comes through the preparation of like having those conversations with your defensive coaches and, hey, I'm taking a shot first play, make sure they cover it because we want to work some other things. But you don't know what you don't know. And so you're trying to make those mental notes while fixing these other notes. And so I never wanted to be, Coach Elliott was the same way. I never wanted to be a coach that just met to meet, right? But you see the value in a meeting, even if it's 7 minutes where you can sit down and go through, hey, this period, this is what I need it to look like. This is where I need to be. But back to kind of what I was saying at the beginning, it's crazy to me how much, and I don't know, maybe you think it's not as different now just from when you were at Vandy a couple years ago, but I feel like the high school two-a-days and the college fall camp, I feel like they're so far apart, even in the past decade. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fall camp I feel like is, we had a small version of that at Tarleton. It wasn't anything drastic. Fall camp in college, a true fall camp, it's a grind. I mean, it's essentially it's 6 a.m. and lights out at 10 p.m. And as an hourly thing, it's not like 6 p.m. There's a 3 or 4 hour gap there where they get to go home and come back. No, like people that have experienced a true fall camp, it is like, dude, I mean, it's 6 a.m. check in, 6:30 breakfast. You got to check in there, for us, or, for at least at Vanderbilt, it was like, by 6:50, you have to have the hydration on your tongue check. I mean, almost like every hour there is something, at least 3 meetings a day from an offensive perspective, but then special teams meeting and team meeting. Yeah, you're doing something like that all day until lights out at 10 p.m. Which I don't know how it was at Baylor, but like I feel like that's how it is at most places.
It was not like that. No,
knowing art. But.
So my freshman year, I didn't go to camp. And Guy Morris took them, put them in a hotel, boom, 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 bust them to the practice facility. Nobody had their car keys. Nobody had their cell phone, yada, yada. They were meeting 6, 7, or 4 or 5 times a day, 2 practices, a walkthrough, all the things, right? Don't get me wrong. From 2008 through 2011, fall camp, we did a lot. We would practice in the morning. We would lift 4 days a week, 5 days a week. We would meet, position meetings before practice, position meetings at some point after practice, special teams meetings. They would feed us. We would have weigh-ins. We would have hydration checks. We would have supplement pickup. We had all those things. And yet somehow at 6:45, I'd get my truck and I'd drive to my apartment. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, I'm tired and we did a lot and I got to go back and do it again. But I slept in my own bed and the sun was up when I left. Right.
Yeah.
And we had windows of recovery and we had a players lounge. Guys took naps in because they lived 3 miles away from campus instead of half a mile. And they didn't want to, they just were going to stay there in our break in between or whatever. Right. We had all those things. But somehow, some way, I'm walking out of there and that's on a day we only had 1 practice. If we had a true 2 a day, we had that afternoon practice, which meant that we ate dinner later. I'm going home at 7:30, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm still going to my apartment and I'm still hydrating, and we're still I got to be there at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning for position meeting or to get tape before position meetings and all these things. But somehow, some way, we still did it without having an itinerary that went to 10 p.m. Mm-hmm. And we still, obviously not those first 2 years when we were figuring everything out, but I don't think it changed much for the few years after I graduated and, they won a lot of football games. So, I've always found, but Coach Brow's way smarter than me and than I'll ever be. And I always keep that in the back of my mind that there's got to be a version of this that's the most efficient possible. And that's what we need to aspire to be. We don't need to just do things to do things, right? Like John Gruden, he's hanging out at Georgia's fall camp and they got a post-practice shake bar. You can get a chocolate chip, milkshake. You can get a mixed berry, a pineapple, mango, whatever, right? But they have to grab that on their way to shower, change, go to this meeting. Then we're gonna, and I don't know. I'm sure it's all great material. Kirby Smart clearly knows what he's doing, right? I just think that especially when the dynamics of high school football scheduling and school class calendars and all of that stuff has changed so much. I think that there's a lot of value in spending as much time as possible. Hey, what's the most efficient version of our use of every day before school starts and once school starts? And when you can find that, right? Like what I told our kids this week is that iron sharpens iron, but a hammer dulls a knife, right? We want to be good on good. We want to be physical. We want to do these things, but we got to make sure we're doing it the right way. It can't become emotional. It can't become fatigue. It can't become this. And the first day we did it, I go to the coach's office. I go, we did that. That was great work until the last 8 plays. We went 8 plays too long, right? And then 3 things happened that we're all thinking about, and we're not really focused on all the great work we got done, right? And so it's a constant evaluation, a constant self-scout of like, all right, do we cut minutes here? Can we add minutes here? Right? How do we get off the field soon enough? And I think that right now, the professionalism that is college football, there's an overemphasis on like getting every drop of juice out of every minute of every day. And it's like, there's the balance. Like, yeah, you got to use them all because you have them and you're paying these guys and you have high expectations, but their bodies can still break down, and they're still, a lot of them are still teenagers, and we still got to manage this mental, emotional fatigue and expectation and things of that nature. And like I said, I haven't coached college football in 12 years. What do I know? That's just me from a very, very outside perspective.
Yeah. No, it's different. I mean, I know that the way that Coach Lee would operate, even now, it says 10 p.m. lights out, but I think the final horn's at 8 p.m. Is what it essentially is. But I also know there's like, they're already trying to cut that down to like, 7:15, 7:30, because a good coach is always going to adapt, and they're going to see, okay, like one thing that I know that a few coaches have done, I've seen before in the past, one most recently that I'm with now, is operating on a 3-day push. And I like that because I've never heard that before. I'm not sure where he got it from, but it's essentially 3 days of a grind. And then that 4th day, it's like, that's your recovery day. And then doing that basically for, basically, I guess 2.5, 3 weeks of a fall camp. I like that mentality, and it's good because I do think that it's very easy to get, if you don't really phase that out as a coach, you're just pushing. And then now you're having to figure out a random day throughout the week where it's like, oh, maybe they are tired. Maybe we should take this day off. Whereas I think if it's actually projected and you're working off of something, and I think that makes more sense. I think that also it now gives the players something to kind of like look forward to. It's almost like if I'm a player and I know, like if I'm a redshirt freshman, right, I know that I have the weekend off every weekend. When those dudes get to Friday, they're amped. And so I think that like operating this way from a coach's perspective, you're now giving the players like, hey, we're 3 days on, 1 day off. And I think it allows them to say, okay, I'm going to grind for these 3 days knowing that, I'll earn that day off, versus like, hopefully we have that surprise day off and coach says we're off. You know what I mean? So I think giving them that kind of almost like a dangling, carrot out in front of you helps a little bit.
100%. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to do it, a lot of different ways to go about it. But as long as you, the leader of the program, you, the coach, are aware of it, then you can find the best version for you. Because we've said it a million times, there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. Like, they're not all going to look the same. There's going to be some that are similar, but there's going to be some that are way different. But I think that constant evaluation, that constant self-scout of your day-to-day logistics during this time period, the beginning of a football season, are extremely valuable. Question for you, and not to be like super, emotional or like anything like that. 1st August, you've gone into in who knows how many years where you're in a little bit of purgatory, not really sure what's next, what it's going to look like, what your relationship with the game is. And I used to say this thing when I was stupid and young, And I thought I needed to keep personal and professional totally separate, and I need to be able to turn the switch on and off. You know, you say, you know, coaching is what I do. It's not who I am. And that's stupid. When you coach, when you're a career coach, and it is what you do, but it also is a huge part of who you are. And getting wrapped up in that, when outside forces put you in a situation that kind of takes it away. How are you handling that? Not really being able to, you know, define what your role is going to be for the next few months.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to be a part of a team this fall. Yeah, a lot of people already know, but I'm not going to say who it is yet. But it's a very high level team. Somebody who I have great respect for, and I'm thankful for the opportunity just to be a part of a team. And it's you know, it's like a voluntary role. And I just remember telling him, like, hey, I'm not desperate for a job. I'm desperate to be around great people who have high standards, because that's what I've learned more than anything is just like, you got to have a purpose in life. That's what you've got to do. But I think what feeds that purpose is the environment of the people that you're doing that purpose with. And that's the fuel that feeds your soul, in my opinion. And so, being back in that environment, not to like throw shade, but like being back in that environment, coming from where I just came from, it's almost amazing at how you can allow mediocrity to creep in if you're around mediocre people. Like if you're around mediocre people for so long, it's almost like inevitable. Some of that stuff might creep into you. And once I left Lipscomb and where I am where I am now, and I'm just seeing how they operate. Yeah, it's like a very high level, but it's also like, my goodness, dude, like what a difference this is as far as expectations, standards, foundation, everything. It's pretty crazy. And so, yeah, I don't really have a role, and I can say it this way. So I was in a meeting, a position meeting the other night, and I'm more of like a fly on the wall. I'm sitting back. I'm in a position meeting, and within that hour and 15-minute meeting, I went through 3 different mood swings, like a complete psychopath, obviously. I literally went from happy to extremely pissed off to grateful, all within that time. It's probably all within like a 45-minute period. So like, obviously, I probably wasn't paying attention enough to what was going on, you know, on the board, because I was just too far thinking about myself, which is so stupid. But I went from happy because I'm like, you know what, like I love being a part of like this team, and it's great people, and I love the head coach. Let's go. And like 20 minutes later, I was just livid, and I was like, I don't have a freaking role. I feel like I need to be doing something. I've done something my whole life. I've had some type of ownership my whole life. I don't have any. I'm worthless. Like, who am I? And then, you know, like 20 minutes later, I was like, what an idiot for thinking that. I'm so grateful right now to be in this position and to have this opportunity just to be a part of something bigger than myself. And I think that's what a lot of people don't get. Every coach, every player, anybody that's part of a bigger organization, like, you are fuel to that fire. It doesn't matter what your role is. Better people make better teams. And so, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what my role is. I am a part of something much bigger than myself, and to me, that's valuable. And during that time in that meeting, I was like, I'm literally finding my worth in my role, which is the dumbest thing that I or anybody could do. Because if you're defining that, it's almost like, well, that's always going to fluctuate your whole life. You're never going to have the same role. And so you're going to have just different worth in your life. No. And obviously that's where I was like, okay, well, I got to have a better foundation, know that my worth is in Jesus, and like that I'm good. Like, I can't have it just in my role. But I think as a coach, it's very easy to do that. Like, how many times, like I'm going to kind of lay out this example here in this meeting, and every coach is going to be like, oh, been there before. So you're the head coach. You have the game day duties meeting. Oh yeah, right. And like, that's the meeting, I feel like, where every coach is like, okay, here we go. Like, what's my responsibility? And like, what headset am I getting? Am I getting a headset? Like, and I've done that before, but it's like, looking at that, it's so stupid, because like, you're literally putting that whole day's mood in that one meeting. You're putting basically your whole season's mood in that meeting because you're going to say, okay, well, if he's just having me chart plays, it means I'm not very important. It's like, no, it's not the case. Like, oh, I'm getting the double headset. I can't hear it. I'm going to look stupid now. Like, no, like, trust me, I've heard all of these things before, and it's just like, no, like, again, I think all this stuff being stripped away from me, and now that I can kind of see it from an outside perspective and have a different gratitude towards it, it's like all that stuff is so stupid and so petty, but you don't know it because you're just inside the bubble still. Um, cannot define your worth in your role, not even in coaching, but in life. So, yeah, I'm not calling plays this fall, but I am a part of a team that is doing it the right way for the right reasons. And even if it's like from a volunteer perspective, like I couldn't be happier. Am I really tired? Yes, I am. I'm very tired. But I love the team and I like being a part of something bigger myself.
A lighthearted kind of reflective thing about that. We get a couple of young guys on staff that they were together at a former school. They're with us now. They're awesome. We're pumped. I hope they never leave, but I know that, they got the kind of trajectory that people are going to be trying to take them left and right. At their previous school, they created a tier system. They had El Capitan, as they referred to him, and it was all satire, it was irony, right? But then you had your tier ones, your tier twos, your tier threes, and your tier fours, and they based it off of distance from the headman's office in the coach's office. Because of the shape of the coach's office and, what you can see, what you can hear, how far away from the door you are. These are all things that factored in. And so anytime like we're just having conversations, hey, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And like there came up one where Kelly left her purse at like our convocation lunch. My wife left her purse at our convocation lunch. I had a meeting. She didn't have a vehicle. And so I grabbed one of the young coaches that is first year coach. I was like, hey, can you take my truck, run her back over to the church, grab her purse, blah, blah, blah. And three of these dudes, they throw their fours up and they're like, that's the most tier 4 job I've ever heard of, coach. And it's like, it's all in good fun. We're just joking about it. But at the same time, just so everybody's aware, your head coach, at least in my perspective, your head coach is aware of those things. And he works really hard to make sure that everybody is given something that they can feel valuable in at some point throughout the season, throughout the school year, whatever it may be. I remember the first time I had that conversation, I was charting plays as a player. Coach Babers wanted me right hash, left hash, down and distance, gain loss, play, coverage. Awesome. No problem. Whatever. I can do that and still play special teams. I got you. And then he brought me to the clipboard first home game in the locker room. And he was like, here, this is what you'll use. And I'm like, I'm about to run out of tunnel with a clipboard. Like, that's crazy, And so you start scrambling, like, how can I get an equipment manager to take this over there? Blah, 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 blah. But like the only person that would have noticed me doing that was me. Right. Yeah. But in my mind, it's like, there's 40,000 people here. They're all going to be like, why is that kid got a clipboard? No, they're not. They're going to be like, oh my gosh, there goes Kendall Wright. There goes Robert Griffin. They don't give a crap that I'm carrying a clipboard. But in my mind, it was like I was carrying a giant sign that said, I'm not that big of a deal. And I'm not. And I wasn't. And it didn't matter. But it's just getting caught up in those things and understanding that if you are with the right kind of leader, they know that and they know that you worry, and they want you to have something that you can completely own and feel value in while you do it. Had a conversation with our defensive coordinator about a young coach, and it was not like when I made this statement, it wasn't something that I was like totally shocked. It was more of a statement of affirmation. He took ownership of a meeting and implementing a new tackling drill. And I just looked at him in the middle and I just mouthed at him and I said, he's really good. And he goes, yeah, I told you. I was like, I never doubted you, but like you see it, you see his body language change, his coaching tone change, and he takes full control of this thing. And he goes, imagine how hard it is to have that when nobody ever gives you something other than flip the laundry and go pick up breakfast. he said, find out, we just had a conversation of find out what the guys are going to take ownership in by giving the opportunity to succeed. And if they fail, you learn where they stand and what they hold dear, and you keep that in mind and you keep moving forward. But it's our job as the head coach to give them something to hold, to own, to feel value in, and still constantly be evaluating what it is that is, because you're going to have the macros and the micros, right? We're going to have guys that take a ton of value and feel super important because they're giving a macro job. And then we're going to have guys that feel super important, take a ton of value because they're given a micro job, right? Can you run a drill? Can you make sure that we're completely set up on Friday nights? Your job is to find out and be able to move those parts and pieces based off of how they behave, so you can put them in the best situation logistically to get the most out of them.
That's right. That's right.
Last thing I wanted to ask you, because I know how I answer it, and it's not always the best. But you and I, over the last 10 to 12 years, have been in situations where we've been assistants on staffs, low rung, bottom of the totem pole assistants, and we've witnessed not great coaching, right? Kind of resting on laurels, not implementing any type of technical growth, just leaning on athleticism, not seeing big picture, not making adjustments that need to be made. How have you, I feel like that's something that's a pretty deep dive, but I'm just curious how you have handled that, your perspective on it. Has it changed since from year one to year, whatever this is, 14?
I mean, I think the overarching answer there is like, I can't really address it. And because I'm going to ask you this, and it's going to be a very different answer to you because you are head coach. I have witnessed, some pretty, even like most recently, like some pretty bad coaching. And it's also like, okay, that's very subjective of me to say, I get that, but it's also, I feel like I know a little bit about football. You know what I mean?
Doesn't make it untrue.
And so it's just like, okay, so I've seen it. And I think the most important thing is, like, if you're not a coordinator, that's not your job. Like, you can see it, but you can't say anything. Now, if you are a coordinator, which I have been most of my career, then at that point it's a different answer. And it's like, I'll answer from that perspective. I've had some coaches in the past that have not been the best. I wouldn't say just in general, but at certain things that I saw in the field, and it was like, oh, no. And I'm not very good about like aggressive confrontation. Like, I don't like doing that. And I don't think you should address it on the field either. I've had coaches before, head coaches in the past I've been with, that would address it on the field. I think that's the worst thing that you can do, because you're undermining that coach's ability in front of the players, and that's so stupid. Whenever I've had to deal with it, to me, that is a private conversation in the room. And if I'm being very transparent, what I've tried to do in the past is, before I even had that conversation, I would specifically bring it up in film and then ask about it and be like, what do you think about this one? I'm just out of genuine curiosity. And then offer my perspective, see if that was receptive. If I see it continue, then it's a private conversation. And maybe that's the wrong way to go about it. Maybe I should be way more direct. Maybe I'm just being soft. I have gotten way more direct as I've gotten older, because I just kind of care less as far as what people think about me. But like, I also I want my coaches to feel confident, and I want them to feel as if I believe in them. I also want to try to like guide them in some ways and say, okay, well, here I see it this way. Here's why I see it this way from a schematic perspective or from a technical perspective. Does that make sense to you, or how does that resonate? Normally that would work. Because normally if I felt like if I could explain that and it was right, if they had any common sense, they would be like, oh yeah, that's right. And then I would see them kind of change it. And they did not have a private conversation, but I know that your answer is probably going to be a little bit different than mine.
Yeah. And I'll give both perspectives. When I was young coach, first on staff, I was a big why guy. very similar to how you would approach it watching film as a coordinator and then lead them to explaining it. I would kind of approach it from the same way and just not do the second half. Hey, when our guy did this, how come you're teaching him that? Well, blah, 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 blah. Oh, okay. And a lot of times what would happen is if it wasn't very good, be like, well, we didn't really talk. Oh, okay. Right. They couldn't, if there's not an ability to teach in the moment, right, to coach the coach on the technique, you're hopeful that there's a light bulb. It's like, meh,
Mm-hmm.
But like I had a conversation that, probably overstepped the boundary when I was a position coach. I wasn't a coordinator. And I said, why are we teaching it that way? I think, this is my reason. Okay. Here's my 2 cents. I did that for a long time. And it's counterintuitive, solely based off of biomechanics. This is the more efficient way to do it. This is why so many people teach it this way. And whether or not that's received, that's not my responsibility. But what is my responsibility is the obligation to the program and to the kids to say, here is a different perspective information. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying this is a thought. Do with it what you want. And I know that can be tense and not always well received. And I'm okay with that. As a head coach, I think there's 2 categories of coaching. There is macro and micro. If we're teaching something macro, teach it your way. And if I want to see a change, then we'll have a conversation, we'll adjust, and nobody's at fault. We're just working. If I have something that I want done a specific way, I'm going to, because I know that those guys are out there. When our quarterbacks come out and our receivers come out for pre-practice, I want settle and noose or whatever they call it now. I want that run this way. I want them to touch the bag 3 times and then sit down. I want the quarterback's feet active the whole time. And when they turn, I want them in a rotation of left shoulder, right shoulder, middle, left shoulder, right shoulder, middle. I know that those people exist, and I know that those conversations are had ahead of time. And if it's not executed to that level of expectation, there's a follow-up conversation that's a little bit more aggressive. But I do think that I've never been somebody that's like, just put your head down, do your job. Like, I have a voice. You don't have to listen to it. But respectfully, I'm going to share it in the right forum, time, place. Never undermine anybody. I'm just going to ask why and then share. And you can do with that whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a place for both. I really do. I think you want to have both on your staff. I think what has to be important on both parties is awareness. Because I think, like, I've always been the more head down, I'm not going to say anything. There's been a few times where I've had to say something because I feel like it is getting worse. And I've seen the people, like, honestly, just recently, like a couple of days ago, where a guy, an interior guy, shared his opinion about receiver stuff. And it was a genuine question, but then he had a very, very kind of aggressive, like, no, I would have done this way. And, like, after the meeting, everybody was kind of like, what? Like, hey, brother, go back to duck walking for your line. Like, don't talk to me about how to stair step somebody. Like, are you kidding me right now? And like, that moment might stick with some of those coaches who maybe go be head coaches forever. And they're like, I'm not hiring that guy. Like, I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm just saying it's like if you're gonna have the voice and say some stuff, then it better be worth it. Is what I would say. Like, don't be the guy, because I've been around these guys before, and they're so annoying. Where it's just like they have opinion about every position. It's like, okay, like by you asking or even saying anything, is that really important right now? Like, is that really affecting us? Because if it's not, and you're just asking out of genuine curiosity, save it. Come ask me later. So I think you got to have that awareness on both sides of it to where, is it going to affect the now? And if it's not, then let's maybe have better awareness there and wait till later. And if it is, let's get it addressed the right way in the right chain of command. But I do think that you want to have a little bit of both on your staff, because if you only have the guys that have their head down, then there never will be confrontation, and healthy confrontation is great confrontation. And so I think you need to have that, but yeah, good perspective for both sides.
And I think that and this is the hardest part, and this is something that I've been chasing for a while. Those conversations are easier when the people that you're having them with trust you implicitly, that they know that you each are loyal to each other to a fault, and that you're truly in the foxhole with each other, and there's never a question about it. You know, I had a coach, they came up this weekend, not a negative way, a positive way. A coach that prior to getting to Mount Vernon, I didn't have a relationship with, and early on formed one, and he's part of our staff, and I feel great about our staff. I think our staff is amazing. But at the end of a conversation, I told him, we have the best job in the world, but when we're a family, it makes the long hours and the high expectations a lot easier. And I think that it makes those conversations a lot easier. If you already know that I have your back when you're not around, right? And you already know that I trust you at the highest level, then when I question you or I challenge you, I'm not doing it from a place of jealousy or criticism. I'm doing it from a place of love and wanting to uplift you, make you better at what you do, because what you do is a big part of who you are, and I want you to be the best version of yourself, right? And when you can confidently believe that your staff is built with that as the foundation, those conversations are 1,000 times easier.